Guys, all right, third video for week 3. This one is going to talk about the set 2 from the Khan Academy for this week's assignments. It is very similar to set 1. Okay, so if you're struggling on set 1, go back and watch the second video I posted and then come back to this one for set 2. All right, so for set 2, when we click on that, it should open up factoring quadratics with a common factor. Okay, so we can see we have a problem here that has a leading coefficient. All the other problems in the previous one were just x squared. This one, now all of a sudden we have a 7 in front. Okay, so there's 2 ways we can deal with this. The first way, and really the easiest way, is by looking at your other coefficients, because sometimes we can just factor that number right out. Okay, so I've got a 7x squared. Here I've got a 35x. Well, 35 is divisible by 7, right? And then I've got a 42, which is also divisible by 7. So we're going to start just by dividing all 3 of these terms by 7 to kind of factor the 7 out of everything. Okay, so since we're factoring it out, right, it's not like the 7 just disappears. It's still there. It's just going to be out in front of our 2 sets of parentheses. All right, so I'm going to write this out as my original problem, 7x squared plus 35x plus 42. Okay, so I got my original problem. Then I'm going to take the 7 and I'm going to factor it out. Okay, so I'm going to put 7, and then for right now, I'm just going to open up one really big set of parentheses right there. All right, so everything gets divided by 7. 7x squared divided by 7 just leaves me with x squared. Okay, 35x divided by 7 leaves me with 5, right? 35 divided by 7, so there's plus 5x. And then I have a plus 42. Well, 42 divided by 7 gives me 6. So now I have plus 6. Okay, so here's what I really have. And since I have that 7 out in front, when I start factoring, I'm going to ignore him. He's just hanging on the front there. Okay, so I'm really just looking at this x squared plus 5x plus 6. And that's what I'm going to be factoring. Well, now it's a lot like the first set of problems that we did in Khan Academy, where since I don't have a coefficient on that x squared anymore, right, we pulled the 7 out, I'm going to leave that 7 hanging on the front, and then I'm going to open up my 2 sets of parentheses, because I'm just focused on the x squared plus 5x plus 6. Well, x squared is going to break down into x times x, right? I'm looking at that 6, so if I make a list of my factors of 6, I've got 1 and 6, 2 and 3, and I need to pick the pair that will add to give me 5. Okay, so I can do -1 and 6, or I can do +2 and +3. And in the first video, I kind of talked about how to differentiate between those two. If I do -1 and +6, right, that will add to give me a +5. But -1 times 6 makes -6, where we need it to be a +6, right? So that tells me I cannot use the -1 and the 6. Let's use the +2 and the +3. Okay, so then I'm going to put x plus 2, x plus 3. Okay, so I have 7, and then x plus 2, and then x plus 3. And that would be my factored form. Okay, it's easy to forget about that 7 after we factor him out, but he is still there in front. All right, so in my answer here on Khan Academy now, I'm going to put 7, x plus 2, close parentheses, new parentheses, x plus 3, close parentheses, and then I can just scroll down and check. Okay, all right, we'll do a couple more. Okay, so this is another one. We've got 4x squared minus 28x plus 40. All right, so my leading coefficient there is a 4. I noticed that 28 and 40 are both divisible by 4. So let's factor that 4 right out of there. All right, so I'm going to factor out the 4, which means I'm going to put the 4 out in front and have one big set of parentheses now. If I factor that 4 out, right, 4x squared just becomes x squared. 28x, well, 28 divided by 4 is 7, so now I have minus 7x. And then 40 divided by 4 gives me 10. All right, so I had the x squared minus 7x plus 10. Okay, so then remember, I'm going to bring that 4 down in front. I'm going to open up my 2 sets of parentheses because I don't have a leading coefficient that I have to worry about anymore. I'm going to break apart the x squared into x times x. Okay, and then I've got a positive 10. I'm looking for factors of positive 10 that will combine to give me a negative 7, right? So I've got 1 and 10, or 2 and 5. 2 and 5 will make 7, and if I want that 7 to be negative, both the 2 and the 5 have to be negative, right? And it's okay that they're both negative because negative 2 times negative 5 does still multiply to make a positive 10. Okay, so I've got x minus 2, x minus 5. Okay, so then I'm going to type in here 4 parentheses x minus 2, new parentheses x minus 5. Right, we'll check. Okay, and we got the happy chime. Okay. All right. I hope that this has helped you guys, right? We should be factoring our 5 out from this one, right? I don't necessarily think you need me to go through a whole lot of other examples. If you need more help on this, please let me know, and I would absolutely be willing, more than happy to help you out. All right? All right. Love you guys. Hope you're doing well.